Discover the incredible life-changing journey of the Dodge brothers. A hidden legacy exposed. In the heart of 1920s Detroit, everything felt heavy. The weight of loss and hope pressed on the shoulders of 25-year-old Henry Dodge. Just days after burying his father, a war veteran consumed by dreams unfulfilled, Henry was not only mourning but also stepping up as the lifeline of his family. The old auto repair shop, a cacophony of clanking metal and echoes of laughter, had become a sanctuary, where grease stains were badges of honor. Each smear reminded him of love, loss, and the relentless grind to forge a path toward the American dream. A dream that felt just out of reach now. As he wiped his hands on an oily rag, memories flooded over him, the times they built engines together, and the pride in his father's eyes when they completed a job. With the sun setting over the smoky skyline, Henry and his younger brothers, Tom and Samuel, stumbled upon a hidden trove in the back, a collection of their father's blueprints for a revolutionary automobile. Heart racing, Henry felt an electric thrill surge through him. This could be it, boys. This could change everything. But just as that spark ignited, the looming specter of doubt shadowed their ambitions. The wealthy competitors, with their polished suits and lavish showrooms, would never take the Dodge family seriously. Even the weary eyes of their neighborhood, dimmed by the loss of jobs at the nearby factory, seemed to whisper that dreams were only for the privileged. Yet, Henry remembered his father's words. Strength lies in unity. As a dark cloud rolled in, marking the factory's closure, despair seeped into the cracks of the community. Henry felt a tightening in his chest. What would he tell the families who looked to him for hope? Instead of retreating, he realized he needed to act. He rallied the neighborhood for a gathering. It felt like the pulse of the community thrumming against the silence of the night. Yet, as he spoke, he could feel the untrusting murmurs cutting through the air. Could they believe in change, or had they given up? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came a pivotal moment, a chance meeting with a seasoned auto industry mogul. Henry's heart leaped with sudden hope. This man could be their lifeline. But moments later, doubt clawed at his insides when he caught the glint of skepticism in the mogul's eyes. Just as the horizon promised change, old tensions among the brothers bubbled to the surface. "Aren't we wasting our time?" Tom said, frustration etching his face. The night before their planned confrontation with their rival, a storm raged outside, wind howling like a trapped animal. Inside the Dodge home, the atmosphere was electric, full of weighty silence, unspoken fears swirling in the air. Henry stood at the window, staring into the uncertain dawn that awaited them, his heart a drum in his chest. Would they rise together, stronger than the doubts that threatened to tear them apart? Or would the shadows of despair swallow their dreams whole? As dawn broke, its fingers of light stretching across the somber Detroit skyline, Henry's heart raced. The storm had left the streets glistening, but a heavy mist still hung in the air, mirroring his unease. He glanced around the small bedroom he shared with Tom and Samuel. The walls, adorned with faded posters of classic cars, felt like silent witnesses to their dreams. In that moment, they were little more than pictorial reminders of aspirations yet to be fulfilled. With determination surging through him, Henry decided today would be different. Today, they would turn that hidden legacy into something tangible. He gathered his brothers, who were lingering under the weight of uncertainty. Thomas' hands splayed nervously on the table, and Samuel fidgeted with the hem of his worn shirt. "We can't back down now," Henry asserted, trying to infuse courage into their spirits. "We owe it to Dad to try." Tom looked up, skepticism etched into his brow. "And what if it leads to failure? We risk everything for a dream we might not grasp." His voice trembled slightly. "No," Samuel interjected. his youthful face lighting up despite the circumstances. What if we succeed? What if we're meant to build something incredible? His optimism was infectious, and for a fleeting moment, the air between them crackled with hope. With their minds made up, they headed to the shop, excitement battling the remnants of last night's doubt. The familiar scent of motor oil and grease wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Drawing a deep breath, Henry felt alive. He led them to their father's blueprints, spread across a makeshift table. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the intricate designs. "This isn't just a car. It's a chance to revive our community." They examined the blueprints closely, marveling at the attention to detail. Each line was a story, each measurement a dream waiting to unfold. They pored over their father's notes. Ideas that had once seemed too ambitious were now the groundwork for a revolutionary vehicle. Working tirelessly, they spent the morning drafting a plan. They would need tools, materials, and the courage to approach their rivals. "But we can't do it alone," Henry said. "We need the community's support." That afternoon, he gathered everyone he could find in the neighborhood, families who had grown skeptical, eyes exhausted from hardship. "We're asking for your faith," Henry urged as he stood at the forefront of the crowd, heart pounding with nerves and exhilaration. "Together, we can breathe life into this place again. We can build something that belongs to all of us." The murmurs that had once been filled with cynicism began to shift into whispers of intrigue. Faces, once darkened by grief and loss, started to light with a flicker of shared hope. Yet, just as momentum was building, an ominous rumble echoed through the crowd. A luxury car pulled up, and their rival, Mr. Collins, stepped out, his presence suffocating. He wore a polished smile, but Henry could feel the undercurrents of disdain. "Still dreaming, I see?" Collins taunted, surveying the Dodge brothers gathering. "Some dreams are better left untouched." Henry's stomach nodded. Would this be the moment that crushed their fragile hope? Opposition loomed like a storm cloud overhead. But now, he had a spark of community behind him. "This dream is ours to own," he declared, steeling his resolve. With the eyes of their neighbors upon him, Henry felt a surge of defiance. He knew they had the strength to confront Collins. But would it be enough to face not just him, but also the doubts that lurked in their hearts? The path ahead seemed dim, yet it teemed with possibility. As Collins laughed dismissively, shadows of fear threatened to creep back in. Henry's breath quickened. Would he be able to rally everyone for one final stand, or would the darkness snuff out their flame? When the time came to act, everything would come down to a single moment of courage. Would they step forward and seize their destiny together, or retreat into the silence of unfulfilled dreams? The crowd hung tense, their murmurs fading to a whisper beneath the weight of Collins' sneering words. Henry's heart hammered in his chest. The apprehension in the air was palpable, mixed with an undercurrent of unexpected resolve. He could feel the eyes of his brothers, the neighborhood families, and the bitter gaze of Collins aimed right at him. Together, Henry repeated, his voice rising above the murmurs that threatened to drown it out. "If we unite, nothing can overpower us. We are more than a name, more than a memory. We're a community with a mission." Samuel shot him an encouraging smile, while Tom's wary gaze captured Henry's. A small flicker of hope ignited within him. What if they truly could do this? Behind him, the crowd began to shift, doubt morphing into curiosity. "Let us show him what we've got," shouted one of the older men from the back, a former mechanic who'd known their father. The stir of enthusiasm spread like wildfire, igniting hearts that had long felt defeated. But Collins, unfazed, stepped closer, his shadow looming larger. "You really think you can rise from nothing? You're just kids playing with grown-up dreams," he scoffed. His tone dripped with condescension, yet behind those words lay an undeniable fear, the fear of the unknown, of the brothers' unyielding spirit. Henry took a deep breath, grounding himself in what mattered. "We're not just kids," he countered firmly. "We're men who have inherited a legacy. We've got each other, and we've got you, the community, standing with us. That's a force you can't ignore." The crowd erupted into a chorus of approval. Even if the storm clouds hung above, their momentum seemed to push them forward. "Let us show Collins he is wrong," someone's voice shouted. Laughter bubbled up, punctuated by unfurling determination. The Dodge brothers were not just fighting for a dream. They were rallying a movement. Henry felt a warmth rise in his chest. It was real. The dream wasn't just his anymore. It belonged to everyone in this street, to those who had long given up hope. "We'll need supplies, help from everyone who believes in this vision." From somewhere within the crowd, a woman stepped forward. She was a neighbor, her hands stained with years of hard work. "I have tools I can lend. My husband used to be a mechanic, and we can do this together." Her voice cracked, each word filled with both vulnerability and strength. "I can cook for everyone," said another, a young mother with 2 kids at her feet. "We can make this a block party while we work." That was when a small spark ignited in Henry's heart, what felt like an awakening. As the brothers looked around, ideas flowed. The shop could become a workspace, a community hub. They'd host barbecues, fundraisers, and workshops. Together, they could turn visions into reality. But just as hope swelled, Collins interjected sharply, his words slicing through the jubilant air. "This isn't a fairy tale, boys. You'll burn out just like the dreams your father silently carried to his grave. I'll own this town long after you're gone." The warmth flickered, anxiety bubbled back up, but it was different now. Henry glanced at Tom and Samuel, then at the crowd behind him, faces filled with determination. A determination they didn't have moments ago. That flicker was spreading, bold and bright like a flame against darkness. "Maybe," Henry said, unwavering, "but we'll do our best to shine while we can. We'll rise, not just for us, but for everyone who has ever felt lost. And we won't do it alone." As their cheers filled the air, Henry knew they were standing at the precipice. Would they plunge into the depths of despair or soar to heights they had only dared to dream of? Colin's laughter faded into the background, drowned out by the exuberant cries of hope reverberating in their hearts. The first step had been taken. With each passing moment, that gathering became more than just a fight against Collins. It transformed into a battle for their future, a declaration that they would not be defined by their losses. But as the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows, the question hung heavily. Could they truly harness this newfound unity and resilience to face the challenges ahead? Henry turned, ready to lead them into the fire. But another voice bubbled up from the crowd, even more compelling. "What will we do when the real challenges come?" The anticipation electrified the air, and in that fleeting moment, all eyes shifted back to Henry. Would he be the one to guide them through the flames? Henry felt the weight of the crowd's gaze, their hopes and dreams resting on his shoulders. He swallowed hard, praying for the words. He had to inspire them again, propel them into action. "What we do now will define us," he began, holding his chin high. This was never just about the garage or the shop, but about the spirit of this community. Every crack in the pavement, every faded paint on the houses, tells the story of an unbreakable will. Nods echoed back from the crowd, and with each one, Henry's confidence swelled. He sensed a shift, as if a heavy fog were lifting, revealing the bright possibilities ahead. "What challenges?" A voice piped up, sharp and young. Mia, a girl no older than 14, her hair whipping in the evening breeze. "We can hit them head on. They think they own us, but we're the heartbeat of this place." "That's right," chimed in another neighbor, an elderly man with a white beard that danced when he laughed. "They can't take what they didn't build. We're the ones fixing these homes. We're the ones keeping the street alive. Together, together." The rallying cry got louder, ringing through the air. Each shout reinforced the bond they were forging. Henry could feel his brothers at his side, their presence steadying him. Tom's brow was furrowed in determination, while Samuel bounced with enthusiasm. They were the heart that pulsed with hope. "Let us form committees," Henry suggested, his mind racing with ideas. "We'll assign tasks. Renovation, fundraising, outreach. We can throw a community potluck. Spread the word. Let everyone know that Dodge Avenue is rising again." "Ooh," I love potlucks, someone called, laughter rippling through the crowd. As they brainstormed, every fear seemed to melt away, transformed by a powerful surge of unity. For the first time in what felt like ages, joy bubbled in their voices as they chipped in ideas, suggesting how to reclaim their neighborhood. But with the waves of positivity came a creeping dread that lingered at the edges of Henry's mind. Collins wouldn't back down quietly. What was his next move? Would the old man rally the same bit of doubt? Hold on. A woman piped up, her face pale. Collins, just sit back and let us take our community back. This could get ugly, really ugly. The palpable tension returned for a moment, like a dark veil that threatened to shroud their light again. Then we show him that we fight together, Henry shouted, raising his fists in defiance. This isn't just about reclaiming what's ours. This is about declaring a new beginning. If they want to fight, let us give them one they won't forget. He looked around, seeing determination painted across sweaty brows and tired faces. That feeling of togetherness surged through him again. With spirits reignited, someone started a chant. Dodge Avenue! Dodge Avenue! The sound traveled, pulling more into the fold, each cheer a declaration of their strength. But that understanding of unity bore a heavy price, for Henry knew in his heart that the greater they became, the more visible they would be to Collins. They would become a target for his wrath. Every effort they made to build would create resistance, igniting the embers of conflict that Collins thrived on as the sun set. The shadows grew longer, dizzying hues of orange and violet mirrored the tumultuous journey ahead. Henry took a deep breath and gazed at his community, feeling the weight of expectation. We will rise above whatever comes. But remember, true strength lies in our unity. We support each other, or we risk losing everything. The cheer that erupted was intoxicating, yet he couldn't shake the unease looming in his gut. Then, out of the crowd, someone spoke up. What will we do when those threats become real? How will we protect what we're building? The weight of the question hung heavy again, this time settling deeper. Henry glanced at his brothers, the fury igniting in their eyes. The stage was set. The battle ahead was uncertain, but one thing became painfully clear. They were about to awaken a force they couldn't control. How would they meet the darkness? Lurking ahead? What sacrifices would they need to make? The air buzzed with anticipation as Henry prepared to address the looming storm on the horizon, knowing full well that the path was only beginning. Henry's heart raced at the unasked questions lingering in the air like storm clouds. He glanced at Tom and Samuel, both brimming with a mix of excitement and tension, their faces lit by the last rays of the day. This newfound strength felt fragile, as if a sudden gust could tear it away. Let us take a step back, he started, breathing in deeply. We've come together for a common purpose, and that's powerful. But we also need a plan. We can't just charge in blind. Murmurs of agreement washed over the crowd. They were ready to listen, hungry for guidance, and Henry felt a tiny flicker of hope ignite. It was like holding a flame in a storm, still warm and glowing despite the winds threatening to extinguish it. The first thing is to establish a solid foundation, he continued, presenting a clear path forward. Let us form those committees, set clear goals and timelines. We need communication. Open skies, no hiding. If we hear something, we share it. This way, we can act swiftly to counter any threats coming from Collins. A network. A voice called out, the idea igniting smiles around. We can be each other's eyes and ears. Yes, exactly. Henry nodded, encouraged by their enthusiasm. Let us also create a community calendar. Events, meetings, updates, everything in one place, easy for everyone to access. The more unified we are, the harder we strike back. The crowd buzzed with excitement, trading ideas and inspirations amongst them. Henry felt emboldened seeing their spirits lift, but his mind flickered to Collins, waiting in the shadows. He would find a way to retaliate, and it wouldn't be pretty. Then, a voice broke through, steady and soothing. It was Mrs. Stevens, the oldest resident on Dodge Avenue. Henry, she began, her soft eyes glinting with wisdom. The strength of our community doesn't just come from our actions, but from our hearts. We've lived through challenges before. We need to remember those lessons. Henry could hear the underlying caution in her words. The battle ahead wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. What are you suggesting? He pressed, eager to know more. We build bridges, she said, her voice calming the tension. Not just among ourselves but also with others, neighbors we may not see eye to eye with. If we isolate ourselves because of Collins, we cut our roots. We need allies. The chatter died down as her words resonated. Tom shifted nervously, frowning, but Samuel leaned forward, intrigued. So, you're saying we should reach out to others who may be on the fence about Collins and his plans? Exactly. Some may fear him but think better of us. They just need to see our vision, a community united and strong. Mrs. Stevens smiled, and her optimism spread through the group like a familiar warmth. Henry could see it now, the spark of change. We can have open meetings, invite our neighbors, share our dreams and fears, let them see that we're in this together. As discussion swirled, Henry focused on the upcoming challenges, aware that reaching out would take courage. But we need to brace for backlash. Collins will not sit quietly if he sees his grip slipping. The crowd quieted, and fear crept back. Let us be smart, Henry urged, urgency weaving through his voice. Anticipate his moves and prepare for them. With every step forward, we will meet resistance. It's inevitable. Just then, a rustle at the back of the crowd made heads turn. A shadow lingered, watching from a distance. Henry's heart sank. It was Collins, leaning against a lamppost, arms crossed. A smirk danced on his lips, defiance wrapped around him like a cloak. What were you staring at? A neighbor shouted, clenching their fists in courage. But Henry's mind raced. They had stirred the lion, and now the real fight was about to begin. What do we do now? He whispered to himself, a familiar dread creeping in. With Collins lurking, the promise of progress felt heavier, like a stone around their necks. Would they falter, or rise against the impending darkness? The crowd's tension mirrored his own as Collins pushed away from the lamppost and sauntered forward, confidence oozing from him. Do you really think you can challenge me? He called out, his voice slicing through the hope that had been building. Henry felt a surge of resolve. They had started something they couldn't back down from now. Would they show their fear, or would they unleash the power of their unity against the darkness that threatened to engulf them? The choice was theirs to make, and it could change everything. Henry could feel the heat radiating from Collins as he stepped closer, the weight of the crowd's collective anxiety pulsing like a living thing. They were trapped in a standoff where every heartbeat felt deafening, the air thick with tension. Look around you, Collins spat, arms gesturing dismissively at the crowd. These people, they're scared. And scared people don't unite. They scatter. You think you've got the strength to stand against me? You're dreaming. His laughter was a cold, mirthless sound that cut through the air. A taunt, a challenge. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Henry's stomach twisted at the sight of doubt creeping into his friends' faces. It was so easy for Collins to instill fear. He thrived in that environment. But the momentary wave of uncertainty only fueled Henry's determination. This was no longer just about Collins. It was about everything they had built together, the hope flickering like the last light of day. We're not scared. A voice rang out, stronger than Henry expected. It was Tom, standing firm. We've watched what you've done, and we won't let you pull us apart any longer. Collins narrowed his eyes, the amusement fading. Is that so? One brave voice won't change a thing. If you're all looking for a fight, I'll give you one. Just know I play to win. Henry stepped forward, propelled by a mix of adrenaline and purpose. You underestimate us, Collins. Yes, we're scared, but we're also determined. You can't keep manipulating us. This community is our home, and together, we'll protect it. A spark ignited in the crowd, murmurs of agreement swelling into louder, more confident voices. Together, they shouted, words echoing against the walls of the alley. Collins faltered, surprise flickering across his features. He hadn't expected this reaction. For a moment, Uncertainty clouded his arrogant bravado. "Don't think you can drown me out with your noise," he barked. But there was something different in his tone, a hint of worry. The very air shifted as Henry pressed on. "You may think you're powerful, but power doesn't come from intimidation. It comes from community, from trust." He paused to look at each familiar face, each neighbor who had rallied together, and he could see their resolve solidifying. "We're reclaiming that trust. We may fall and stumble, but we'll pick each other up." Henry felt Mrs. Stevens' presence behind him, a reassuring weight. She whispered, "You're speaking from the heart, Henry. Let us make it clear," Henry continued, his voice rising. "We're not afraid of you, Collins. Your time to bully us is over." Suddenly, the atmosphere grew electric, a crackle of determination rising from the crowd. It surged with newfound strength, each individual feeling less alone in their fight. Collins' bravado crumbled, and Henry could almost see the gears turning in his mind, calculating his next move. "You think you can just rally and I won't retaliate?" Collins sneered, but it lacked conviction this time. The crowd's anger was palpable. It washed over them, igniting their courage. "Your threats mean nothing to us," shouted Samuel, emboldened. "We stand together." But just then, they heard a loud crash in the distance. The sound reverberated through the air, sharp and jarring. Collins smirked, quickly regaining his confidence. "See? You don't know what's coming. This is just the beginning." Henry's heart raced anew. What was he planning? They had weathered enough storms. Would they handle the backlash with the same spirit they showed today? Or would this be their undoing? "Let us get ready," Henry urged as the crowd gathered closer, holding their heads higher, united. "We're going to need every ounce of strength we have." With a steely resolve, they could feel the burden of fear lifting, but uncertainty lingered in the air like a thick fog. They were aiming for a unified front, but what darkness loomed on the horizon? Would Collins act as they anticipated? As shadows stretched further and the sun disappeared completely, it became clear. The battle was far from over. What did Collins have in store for them next? Henry's eyes scanned the crowd, now flickering with both fear and passion. He could feel the pulse of their collective heartbeat, a rhythm that mingled with his own. Determination gripped him, tightening around his chest like a wound-up spring as the distant crash reverberated again. Something shattered within the crowd. The shadow of Collins loomed large, but the flicker of hope was pressing back, brightening the faces around him. He may have stirred fear before, but they had now stirred something deeper. What if they could stand firm against whatever storm Collins unleashed? "Prepare yourself," Collins barked, voice slicing through the lingering tension. He was baiting them just as he always had. Henry could see a few faces falter, a flick of doubt creeping back in. It was now or never. He quickly raised his arms, calling for calm. "Don't listen to him," he shouted over the murmur of whispers. "He wants you to be scared because that's where his power lies. But we have something he'll never understand. Our strength lies in our unity. And we are stronger together than we could ever be apart." The crowd surged with the weight of his words, excitement igniting between them like sparks. Tom stood beside him, fists clenched in resolve, and the solidarity sparked once more in their eyes. A woman called out, "What do we do if he comes for us?" Her voice cracked, but Henry heard desperation laced within it. He took a deep breath, pulling courage from the very air around him. "Then we stand our ground. If he wants a fight, we fight back. But we do it together." He felt the warmth of Mrs. Stevens' hand on his shoulder, a reminder of the bond they all shared. "Together," the crowd echoed back, stronger each time the words sprung from their lips. But then, above the chant, they heard shouting, menacing voices carried through the alleyway, growing louder and more aggressive. Collins' smirk twisted into a scowl. "Looks like reinforcements have arrived," he chuckled darkly. Henry knew this was a defining moment. They couldn't let fear win again. He motioned for silence as he glanced around. "This is it. If Collins thinks he can break us, show him he's wrong. We'll stand our ground for our home, for our future." Just then, a group of men emerged from the shadows, marching straight toward them as if they were a storm-gathering force. Each step was calculated, driven by a purpose only Collins understood. A fear settled over the gathering, but Henry could not back down. "Stay together. Don't let them break our spirit," he shouted, and he could feel the energy shift again, angry, defiant energy. The men stopped a few feet away, muscles coiled, ready to pounce at Collins's command. The crowd stiffened. It was a moment of supreme tension, the kind that wrapped around everyone's heart like a vice. Collins stepped forward, his voice dripping with menace. "You think this is a game? You'll see what you've awakened tonight." Henry swallowed hard but stood tall, heart pounding, feeling the intensity of the moment surge through him. It was all or nothing. He took a step forward. "We will not be pawns in your game any longer. You've underestimated the power of this community, and we will not back down." Suddenly, the first punch was thrown not from the men in the shadows but from the crowd behind him. A ripple of solidarity surged. Then chaos erupted, and with it came an unexpected clarity. Could they truly fight back against Collins? Caught in the moment, with fists flying and shouts erupting, Henry's mind raced with questions. Would they endure? Did they have the strength they thought they did? As the dark of night deepened, and the shouts echoed through the alley, one thing stood clear. This fight was only just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. What would it take for them to finally triumph? The tension hung thick in the air, punctuated by the sound of fists colliding with flesh. Henry felt both exhilaration and dread as chaos erupted around him. He took a deep breath, trying to focus through the noise. The crowd was no longer just a mass of frightened faces. They were a force, a swirling storm of resilience and defiance. Tom stood right beside him, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We can't hold back," he yelled, his voice barely cutting through the cacophony. "Let us show them what we're made of." Henry nodded, his focus sharpened. Even in trouble, he sensed the spark of something larger, a communal heartbeat echoing through the alleyways. Each shout, each punch thrown was a declaration. They were refusing to back down, and it fired him up. But Collins wasn't just a bystander. He moved with calculated precision, barking orders to his men. "Push them back. Don't let their cries fool you." His voice carried with it a deep-seated cruelty, and his glare seemed to cut through the chaos like a knife. Henry's heart raced as he caught sight of a group of their neighbors using makeshift weapons, bats, sticks, anything they could find to bolster their fight. He felt the heat of anger rise in him. This was his home, his people. They were not sheep waiting to be led into the slaughter. With renewed purpose, Henry thrust his chest out and joined the fray, directing those around him. "Stick together. Protect each other. This is our moment." His words rang out clear, and he could see the flicker of trust igniting in their eyes. But suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the night. A young boy, no more than 10, had stumbled backward, caught between the clash of fists. The crowd gasped as the realization hit. They were fighting for more than just pride, they were fighting for the future. Without thinking, Henry pushed through the chaos, weaving between tussling bodies, his mind focused on reaching the boy. "I've got you," he called, feeling the pounding of his heart in his throat. The boy's eyes were wide with fright, tears streaking his dirty cheeks as Henry reached him. He pulled the boy close. "You're safe now, stay behind me." His voice was firm yet soothing, holding back the tide of fear that threatened to overwhelm them both. And then, in a moment that felt both fleeting and eternal, the sound of fighting faded just enough for Henry to hear something else, a low rumble that came from the shadows. A new surge of men, larger and fiercer than before, appeared at Collins' call. This was all getting out of control. "Brace yourselves," Henry shouted. "We can't let this fear stop us." But doubt crept in as his gaze darted back to his neighbors. Would they be able to hold their ground? The world felt like it was spinning, the stakes higher than ever. Just as panic began to claw at the edges of his heart, he caught Tom's eye, his friend's expression a mixture of fervor and unshakable faith. That spark they shared, could it be enough to light the way out of darkness? Before he could ponder it further, Collins was on the move again. His face twisted with fury, and he pointed directly at Henry. Get rid of him, now. With those words, the shadows shifted once more, and Henry's stomach dropped. What would happen next? Would they stand strong against this overwhelming tide? Or was it the moment everything would crash down? A fierce roar erupted from the crowd behind. They were not broken. They were just getting started. Henry's heart raced as Collins's command echoed in his ears, sending a chill down his spine. Time seemed to stretch impossibly thin as he stood still for just a moment, fear battling with an undying resolve. He had fought hard not just for the boy, but for everyone he loved, for this community he called home. But the moment shattered when Collins's men surged forward. They were a wall of muscle and menace, their faces a mix of irrational rage and desperate zeal. Henry could feel the collective pulse of the crowd, a symphony of fear and bravery mingling together. "Tom," he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "We need to rally them." Tom was already moving, raising his voice above the clamor. "Everyone, we fight together or not at all." His words sparked an ember of determination, warmth radiating through the nearby fighters. But there was no denying the gravity of their situation. Collins's men advanced like a tidal wave threatening to swallow everything in its path. Henry's mind raced with frantic thoughts. They couldn't afford to lose ground. "Everyone, form a line," he directed, waving his arms as he moved to gather anyone close enough that his neighbors positioned themselves shoulder to shoulder. A sense of familiarity washed over Henry. He saw Miss Lane, a grandmother who had baked cookies for every block party, standing firm with her cane gripped tightly in her gnarled hand. Jack, the teenager who had spent his summers mowing lawns, was readying his baseball bat. Even old Mr. Harrison, with his infinite wisdom and stories, gritted his teeth, determination set on his weathered face. Bravery swelled within him, fueled by the sight of one another standing tall. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," he shouted, voice carrying over the mayhem. "We're fighting for our families, our children, our future." A surge of energy rippled through the crowd as words ignited hearts. They were united, a patchwork quilt of lives woven together by efforts both big and small. But Collins's men showed no signs of retreat. In one fierce, calculated motion, they lunged toward Henry, violent shadows encroaching like a nightmare. The faces of his neighbors momentarily froze in anxiety, doubt creeping into their resolve. "No," Henry bellowed, rallying his spirit. He stepped forward, ready to defend not just himself but those he had come to see as family. "We can't falter now." Tom, standing beside him, met his gaze, and in that instant, Henry felt the weight of friendship propelling him. They charged together, fists clenched, hearts racing in synchrony. The crowd mirrored their movements, a tidal wave of defiance crashing against the enemy. A body collided with Henry, pushing him off balance, but he regained his stance, swinging wildly, emotions pouring out with each punch. Chaos surrounded him, a blur of colors, shouts, and a cacophony of pain and grit. In the midst of the turmoil, he caught a glimpse of the boy he had saved, still hidden safely behind a wall of determination. That fleeting image sparked a whisper of hope deep within him, a reminder of why they were fighting. Then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed a figure breaking free from the shadows. A woman, petite but fierce, was fighting her way to the front lines. It was Sarah, the local teacher known for her gentle spirit, now transformed into a warrior. "What's she doing?" Tom gasped, surprise permeating his voice. "Maybe she's got a plan," Henry replied, heart racing faster. But before he could ponder further, Sarah locked eyes with him. "We need each other to win this," she shouted, and her words cut through the haze of violence, electrifying the air around them. Henry grappled with his emotions as the fight surged on. What did this truly mean for them all? Could they really unite their strengths, push back against what felt insurmountable? As Sarah drew closer, Henry wondered what her arrival would change. The chaos around seemed to still just for a heartbeat, a moment of clarity in the storm. Would this be the turning point they needed, or simply the calm before the storm? One thing was certain, they were not done fighting yet. Amidst the chaos of fists and shouts, something began to shift. Henry could feel a swell of determination and passion coursing through the crowd, fueled by not just fear, but a fierce pride. It ignited hope, a fire they had long thought extinguished. Just as Collins' men pressed forward, ready to crash into their line, a new energy reverberated through Henry's heart. They were not alone. They had each other. "Hold steady," Henry urged, his voice cut through the noise like a beacon. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Tom and Samuel, the warmth of solidarity grounding him. "This isn't just a fight. It's a stand for everyone who has ever been silenced." A collective shout erupted for our future, as neighbors rallied shoulder to shoulder, their resolve hardening. Each face reflected a story. Parents fighting for their kids, elders defending a lifetime of memories, and children who wanted to grow up in a world without fear. They were united, a single entity staring down a formidable foe. "Push back," Henry roared, and they surged forward. The spirit of defiance soared with each step they took into the fray. With each punch thrown, fear mixed with exhilaration. Their voices melded together into a symphony of strength. The Dodge brothers led their community deeper into the battle, not just against Collins but against every doubt that had threatened to engulf them. In that tumultuous moment, Henry spotted Sarah again, her small frame moving with surprising agility and strength. She was like a whirlwind, rallying neighbors with her infectious spirit, her passion, a clarion call that broke through the foundational fears. "Let us show them who we are," she shouted, binding them together with her commanding presence. With her leading the charge, the crowd erupted into a chorus, a rhythm to their movements that turned chaos into collective power. They were no longer just a group of individuals fighting against oppression. They were a family. With hearts pounding and fists flying, they drove back. Each face, each voice, each heartbeat connected them all further. The air thickened with sweat and determination, and Henry felt alive in a way he had never felt before. This was purpose. This was hope. This was community. But as they pushed forward, Henry's thoughts flickered. The stakes were high. Would they ever truly be free of Collins? Would the storm lead to a tidal wave of change? Or were they merely holding off the inevitable collapse? Yet, something in his core whispered this was a moment, a defining moment. They had come too far to turn back now. Suddenly, another shout rang out. "Look out!" One of Collins' men charged forward, but this time Henry was ready. He sidestepped, felt the rush of adrenaline, and retaliated, fists flying with fierce precision. "You will not take this community from us," he yelled, each word imbued with every ounce of raw emotion pent up inside him. Collins, seeing his control slipping, escalated his threats, barking orders to his men. "Don't let them win. They'll regret ever rising up." His shouts echoed throughout the alley, but the fire behind Henry's eyes burned brighter. Steeling himself, he turned to the crowd. "Are we going to let him dictate our future?" he called out. In unison, the answer came back resounding. "No." With a wave of conviction, they surged forward, forcing Collins and his men back little by little, step by step. Henry let the momentum carry him. Each stride forward felt like reclaiming a piece of their community, each tug of breath bringing with it waves of camaraderie. As the battle raged on, Henry caught glimpses of the future. Families thriving, laughter among neighbors, a street humming with life and love. With every punch and every shout, they were not just fighting for the present, they were building a legacy. At last, Collins' men began to falter. The tide had shifted dramatically as more and more voices joined the chorus, pushing against the tide of fear. The tide was in their favor, and Henry felt the power rush through him. Then suddenly, something happened, a moment of clarity. They could win not just for themselves, but for every life their fight touched. "This is our home," Henry shouted, rallying everyone. "This is our fight. Together." And with that one final push, they surged forward, forcing Collins back in a surge of strength and fervor, shoving him out into the shadows he had commanded for so long. As the crowd began to clash his men, Henry felt the triumph swell around him, brighter than the darkest night they had endured. When the chaos settled, Collins was left standing alone, his bravado cracking. "We'll see about this," he muttered. But Henry paused, breathless, filled with emotions too great for words. He turned to face his brothers, eyes shining with newfound hope. "Together?" Tom asked, and Samuel grinned widely, nodding. "Always," Henry replied, as the crowd erupted into cheers. Their community, it was alive, vibrant and defiant. In that moment, they had forged something unbreakable. A legacy stronger than fear and louder than despair, a tether connecting every heart on Dodge Avenue, ready to face whatever came next. So what happens now? They rebuild, hand in hand, creating a future bright with possibilities. And as the victorious chants echoed into the night, a promise lived eternal. They would face the dawn together, ready for the adventures that lay ahead, unwavering in their strength. If you're feeling inspired by this incredible journey and you don't want to miss more stories like this, then you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Don't wait not even one more second. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending below. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.